Hi, everybody. Julie here. Some big news today out of Western on November 29th. Western very quietly but publicly announced that it is revoking its vaccination mandate. And I wanted to chat with one of our senior litigators, Mark Joseph, today about what that's going to mean for students going forward, what legal implications there might be, if any, and how it relates to the case that the Democracy Fund was involved with students who were trying to achieve this very thing. So Mark, what do you think about this announcement today?
Well, I mean, it's very encouraging. It looks like Western is dropping their vaccine mandate for students and staff. And obviously that means that that people are free to attend campus without showing proof of vaccination.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about the case you were involved with Litigator and what happened in September when the judge dismissed your application. Can you just get everybody caught up a little bit? What was that case about? And then how does this outcome relate to that?
Sure. So TDF, on behalf of several students, Western University students, and Litigator of Libertas Law, brought a lawsuit some time ago against the University of Western Ontario, challenging their vaccination booster mandate. And we did so on the grounds of privacy violations, contrary to FIPA, the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And we said that the collection of personal health information was not necessary to the activities of Western University. So we brought that application in a court in London, Ontario. And unfortunately, we had our application dismissed, but we appealed that judgment. And that appeal is just, we're getting our date to be heard at some point, and the courts are obviously backed up. So that should be heard in future. But of course, Western made this announcement.
So what does that mean then? Is the appeal just dismissed because the thing you're appealing and challenging is no longer in place, or?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't automatically mean that. There's obviously pros and cons about continuing the case. It's not, we don't think it's good practice to allow an institution to proceed with bad policy or under misinterpretation of law, and for a time, and then be challenged on it by another party, drop the law, and essentially have their, we say, bad conduct excused. So it's sometimes not good practice to let institutions proceed that way. On the other hand, Western did drop its vaccination mandate. So arguably, the lawsuit has achieved its ends. I'm not saying that that's the reason UWO dropped the vaccine mandate, but you can see that there might be a connection.
Mm-hmm. It's the same sort of thing that happened in the federal travel mandate case, right? The mandate was dropped while that case was still in process, as I understand it. So then I take it that some felt, at least, that the challenge was moot because the thing that you were challenging no longer existed, the policy. Is there any reason to think that these mandates are being dropped because of, now I'm asking you to not be a literal lawyer for a minute, but just to give us your thoughts. Is there any reason to think these mandates are being dropped because of the collective legal pressure that's being exerted on these institutions and government?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know. I flatter myself to say that, it's definitely because of TDF's lawsuit. I don't know. I'm not privy to the internal workings of the university's policy making group, their discussions they're having with their council. So I don't know. It's impossible to tell. It's impossible to say. I know there was a lot of pressure on Western from various sources. I know a lot of parents were upset, parents of unvaccinated students, parents of vaccinated students. I know that because we were contacted by them. So there was that pressure on Western. Obviously, there's some legal risk here if they proceed. They were facing an appeal. The Court of Appeal was going to look at the law and examine the conduct of Western and then make a finding. Now, it could have gone either way, so it might go either way, who knows? So of course, that's a risk. So Western obviously is a rational actor, and they would have considered that.
And we've already seen Western backpedal a little bit from their original mandate announcement in August, when they decided to extend the deadline to have your booster. I forget the date, January 2023 sometime. I mean, that was already a kind of pulling back or backpedaling or whatever you want to call it. One thing, however, that is very noticeable in all of these decisions to lift mandates is that they're never accompanied by any sort of acknowledgement of accountability or apology. If you look, I'm just looking at the email here, or the announcement that was posted by Lynn Logan, who is Vice President of Operations and Finance at Western. And she says the thing that's typically said: Western has committed to regularly reviewing our vaccination policy based on the latest consultation with our medical experts in local public health. We are revoking our vaccination policy and will no longer require students, employees, and visitors to be vaccinated to come to campus. If you look at how social media is responding to this announcement, so many people are saying Western should have apologized. I mean, including me on my Twitter page today, but I'm not saying that as a lawyer. I'm saying that as a moral agent and a person who's demanding some accountability, right? But we never see that. And I'm sure we will never see that unless we have enough distance from time that the people who made these decisions really can't be held accountable anymore. My suspicion is that if Western was to apologize, that would be a kind of indication of guilt and wrongdoing. And so we will never see that. Does that seem right in your mind?
Well, I mean, yeah, a public apology could be seen as an admission of liability. Mm-hmm. And I think any lawyer advising an institution probably would say, don't make any apology, because that could be seen as an admission of liability, and you could incur that could be used in a subsequent lawsuit against you, arguably. So lawyers are cautious, and their advice is going to be tailored and measured. That's probably the advice that Western is receiving. They say, look, the science has changed. We've consulted the best experts on this, and so our position has changed. I mean, who's to gainsay that? You have to get into the weeds, with litigation and see if that's true. I have no idea. But that's, probably prudent counsel.
There are a lot of students who have held out, who have flown under the radar somehow, not complied with the vaccination policy, and maintained their student status somehow, whether they got exemptions, whether they took a leave, and professors and staff too. I mean, this is very good news for people who fall into that group. But then there's this other group of people, kind of in the middle between those who didn't comply and those who were very happy to comply, the reluctantly compliant, maybe we would call them, right? Those students and staff and faculty, not just at Western, but at any institution that imposed these mandates, who complied with the mandates only because they felt threatened, because they were going to lose their paycheck if they didn't, because they were going to lose their status as a student. And a lot of those people claim anyway that they've suffered terribly. I know when I was on Western's campus speaking at a rally very close to the start of school year, I had a lot of students come up to me and express all of their concerns, tell all of their stories about how sick they've been and how they've been harmed by taking these vaccines. There's very little. The lifting of the mandate is going to be a kind of bittersweet moment for them, or a sort of almost sour grapes moment for them. It's too little too late in some sense. And I don't know if I'm leading up to a question here, but I find the way these announcements are made to be very callous and disregarding of harm that's already been done. I mean, thank goodness it's not in place anymore. But I guess what words or what advice do you have for people who have already been, or in their view, have been harmed by these mandates, and what can they or should they be doing going forward legally, if anything?
That's a difficult question, Dr. Julie. I mean, I can't give legal advice. If people have vaccine injuries, I guess, it's important to document that medically, and then approach a lawyer if their concerns are serious. And get the proper legal advice. As to the announcement themselves, I know, like I said, there was a lot of parents of vaccinated students who were upset that their children were going to have to endure, a booster and then arguably a second or third, fourth, who knows. And they're no longer having to face that worry. So that's something, I think, for them. And I'm glad that obviously Western has rescinded or revoked the vaccination mandate, and at least that ends it for now. Other than that, I don't know what to tell them. I can't, you're the best, or you're better than me at figuring out the moral landscape of the world we're in. So, yeah.
Oh, boy, that's a tough, that's a tough problem. I think one of the worries is when you don't have an admission of accountability or kind of apology, there's no sense that this sort of policy won't come back, right? And that it can just change with the wind. So while this is a victory of sorts, it feels like a bit of an empty one without that kind of apology, and with the realization that it could just, we're hearing about this triple threat. This is the narrative. This is what the media is saying with RSV and COVID and the flu. And so it seems like an odd time for a university that has really been at the forefront of defending that narrative to be lifting its mandate. I find that a bit surprising, but we should take it for what it's worth for now. You're going to hate me for doing this, but let's tell everybody that the Democracy Fund is a civil liberties charitable organization, and we do offer legal help for people who need it. And Mark, can you tell everybody how they can find out some information about our legal services?
Sure. We are donor-based, don't take any government funding. So if you like our work, you like what we do, you can go to democracyfund.ca and donate, get a charitable tax receipt, or you can follow us on Twitter at TDF_Ken.
And you can find some lawyers and legal assistants, paralegals to help if you're in that position as well. Mark, thanks so much as always.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed watching this video, please consider making a tax-deductible donation to the democracyfund.ca/donate.